Hello and welcome to my podcast, The Hidden Genius. I have a very special guest today, Larissa Astara Gray, and she is an amazing lady who has got a very special and important mission to carry. She is a safe sex education speaker, and she brings awareness around that subject. And it's going to be juicy already, as you can tell by the name. But I'm so excited to learn more about her story, who she is, and why she's doing that. So please help me welcome Larissa to the podcast. Welcome, Larissa. How are you?
Hello, Anna. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And the name really sparked a lot of interest in me. And I do think I have got some hidden genius that needs to kind of come out. So, yeah, I'll own that.
Well, let's bring it out, my dear. I'm excited. So the first question I have for you, what is the story only you can tell? And I appreciate it's a very broad question, but I would like you to share kind of like your stream of consciousness. The first thing that comes to mind, whether it's a generic view or a specific detail. What is the story that only you can tell?
Wow. I would say it's the story of not being seen or heard or valued. Yeah. And it started from a very young age. My parents were very excited to have a child, but they wanted me to have their life, not my life. They wanted me to do things that they always wanted. So my mom always wanted to dance and be a ballerina. So I was made to go to ballet classes. And my dad wanted to play violin. So I was made to play violin. And I wanted to do these things because I wanted to please them. And I wanted them to be happy and I wanted them to love me. So I started living a life that wasn't really my wants and needs and desires. It was about others. And those things started to form little patterns within me that I had to shut down a big part of myself, and that I wasn't loved being me, and that I had to be whoever anybody else wanted me to be in order to get recognition. And it kind of went on in lots of different ways. I love animals. I love dogs particularly. I wasn't allowed to have a dog as a child. You know, I was told they were disgusting animals. Why would we want them in the house? And every sort of way that I wanted to express my love and my passions were kind of squashed out of me. And so it even went as far as my skin. My mom really likes to be tanned and brown. And so when I was a little girl, she used to say, "Why can't you be brown? Why don't you tan?" And I sort of, thought, I can't be loved even in my own skin. I need to, I wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. So every single part of me just wasn't seen or valued or heard. So now this is something that I really want people to feel seen, valued and heard. And, their core essence of who they are, their soul energy, their fullness, their entirety. But from those earlier patterns, I'd already formed a lot of sort of trauma responses. Are you aware of the fawning trauma response?
No, if you can give a little bit of context.
We often hear about the fight or the flight response to trauma.
Yes. Yeah.
But we don't always hear of the others. There's about 7 or 8 different ones. And I teach these when I go into colleges. And so you've got fight or flight, you've got freeze, and you've got fawn, which is, fawning is when you kind of tend and befriend your abuser. You're trying to appease them. You're wanting them to accept you. You're wanting to make it right. So I'd learned that this was a really good coping strategy to life. And so when it started to, you know, come to navigate relationships and stuff like that, that was my default response and mechanism. And really a big sort of power giver away, you know. So it put me in very, very vulnerable situations with people, and especially when it came to sexuality. And it put me in a very vulnerable place when I was about 13. I took part in a truth circle, and all the other girls in the truth circle, it was a group of girls, said that they'd lost their virginity. And I hadn't. And I was like, oh my God, I don't fit in. I need to fit in. I need to be part of the gang, the cool gang. So I said to this guy that was older than me, that I was ready to go to the next level. But I was not ready to go to the next level. I was 13, you know. I didn't really know. I'd never really had any sex education. Nobody ever talked to me about it, helped me understand all the different things around it, you know. I don't think I'd even had much of it at school at that point. And when we did at school, it was pretty limited. So that weekend, my friend had a party and her parents were away. And this guy got me to the downstairs toilet and he said, right, you said we'd go to the next level. And I was like, not here, not now. What do you mean, you prick tease? You said you were, and you're just a wind-up and all of this. And then I went into that freeze response. I sort of tapped on a little bit earlier, and I completely froze. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I froze. He got me up against the wall. He put a condom on, and he raped me.
Oh, gosh.
He then took the condom off, tied it up, went out into the party, started swinging it around, and all the lads were like, go on, yeah, go on, son. And I was just still left frozen in this downstairs bathroom, wondering what the hell had happened to me. And, you know, this is something that I'm very, very passionate about now, because lots of things happened to me that day. But we hear the word rape, we hear the word sexual abuse all the time. It's on the television all the time with the Epstein files, with you know, different cases. And I think we've become very desensitized to what that word actually means. So what I really want to do is resensitize people, get them to really understand what does that word mean. And so I talk about all the different things that actually happened to me because of that one event when I was 13.
Wow, Larissa, thank you so much for sharing, opening your heart and being so vulnerable and transparent about that pretty traumatic experience that you had. But you obviously, it took a lot of courage for you over the years to be able to articulate it so beautifully and to own that, because it had an emotional impact. And that actually what revealed to you later on the path you're walking on now. So that's your bigger why. Like it came through such an incredible level of humiliation and trauma and questioning yourself and feeling guilty and shameful. I can only imagine what you went through, and then channel it into an inspirational mission. It's just incredible. I want to applaud you for that and for having the courage to speak up. And I'm pretty sure you share this story in your speaking that you do now, and you're bringing this awareness to younger generation, because you're quite right. Lots of people, you know, we hear things, we read about things, we become, you know, we get shocked. Oh my God, I can't believe what happened to her, to him. But I don't think that people really understand the impact it has and the layers of all of that. So thank you for opening this conversation with such a tremendous, tremendously profound insight, really, that came at such a high cost. Now, I want to go back a little bit to, you said that it all started as people-pleasing behavior because who you really were was not good enough, was not accepted even by the gods of your world, your parents, who wanted you to be someone you were not. So when was that time, or do you remember that moment when you started to realize that actually there is a difference between who I am trying to become and who I really am, and which way do I choose?
Okay, so this is a big question and it's a shocking answer. I didn't understand that formative trauma of having to live somebody else's life until I was 42 years of age.
Wow.
Because after the rape at 13, that because of some of the negative beliefs it caused and the slut shaming and then the reputation, which I numbed out with drugs and alcohol, and then that put me in vulnerable relationships. I had to numb out a lot of that pain and suffering that I had with some of the strongest drugs out there. Because my life, when you have trauma, it keeps attracting more trauma.
Yeah.
Unless you are able to get to somebody that can heal it. And back in those days, nobody even knew what the word trauma was, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had all of this trauma happening to me. I had nowhere of processing the feelings or processing anything, and I had nothing that was going to heal or help me. So I went from one trauma to another to another. So I call it the eternal onion. I had layers and layers and layers and layers of abuse and trauma. And, by age 22, I was a heroin addict. I was a heroin addict for about 3 years. Of course, that brought years of trauma as well and abuse. And even when I cleaned up from heroin around 25, because I'd had 15 or 13 odd years of trauma, even though I'd got clean off the drugs, I was still in these negative relationship patterns, like coercive, controlling, domestic violent relationship patterns. So they still kept going on, even though I was trying to heal myself and sort myself out. And really, up until my marriage, I was divorced about 9 years ago now. Up until my marriage, I was healing, but still going through a lot of toxic relationships. I've never been able to have a healthy relationship in my life. Hope that's a goal that I want to be able to do. But it wasn't until I was about 40 that I realised that I delayered enough to understand some of these earlier patterns that had created a lot of things. I kind of did a little bit of work around my inner child and different things. I mean, when I say a little bit of work, I've worked on myself constantly, every single day, different therapies, different treatments. It was energy healing and acupuncture that got me clean off heroin. And then I went on courses to learn that. Then I went on courses to learn different types of healing, different belief clearing systems, different body work, trauma clearing systems. So I'd done a lot of dedicated personal development. There'd be years in between these toxic relationships where I wouldn't go out and I would just shut down and work on myself and try and get better before I even went back out into the world. I'd have chronic fatigue, but I think it was just my body just going, I can't take anymore. And I'd work on myself and stuff. So, I didn't really understand those patterns till I was about 40, really, and was able to sort of articulate it.
Wow. Yeah, it's incredible that you have gone through that healing journey to understand those layers of what was pulling you down and what was shutting you off, and you were attracting those patterns because of you. It's been so long that you have integrated with those patterns of behavior, so you kept attracting more and more abusers that were conforming the same stories running in your head, that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that you're just this is an incredibly inspirational journey, Larissa, that you are still that you have come on the other side, and you're such a
I
well
wouldn't say I'm
put
quite on
together.
the other side yet. I'm still a work in progress. I'm still actively working on myself. I do that, every day. Something comes up, and because I learned so many of these tools, I've got lots of tools in my toolkit to help me when things come up. Yeah.
Get through that, but still, like, the mission that you're doing right now is a testimony that that work has brought its fruitful results, has created an impact, and you are out there sharing your gift and sharing your genius, using that pain, using that suffering, using that drug addiction stories, using those incredibly vulnerable stories of shame and guilt for a good cause, to
Yeah.
inspire people,
Yeah.
to
Because
do good in the world.
the initial rape when I was 13, it caused all of that trauma. And then I also found out that every single one of those girls in the truth circle had lied. So I was betrayed by them as well. So I didn't feel safe with males. I didn't feel safe with females. I didn't feel I had a voice. My voice was taken away even more by the rape. It was taken away by my parents. It was taken away by the rape. It was taken away by the girls. So it's been a deep process of reclaiming that. But also, like you say, Anna, when you've got a pattern, that pattern keeps repeating itself. So I have been vulnerable, and I've been in many non-consensual or rape situations in my life. The last one was in my 30s. I think I was about 35, and I was at a conscious sexuality conference in Amsterdam.
Wow.
And one of the teachers there was a big Australian conscious sexuality teacher. He was highly regarded by the people I knew in England, so I thought I could trust him. I went for a session with him, and he raped me.
Wow.
But I have had mediation with him. I tried to get mediation back in 2012 with another lady who's a consent specialist called Betty Martin. She's often referred to as the Queen of Consent. So I thought I was in safe hands having her hold space for us. But she didn't know about the fawning response. So when I attended and befriended him after the incident, she didn't understand that. So she backed him up, and they both kind of gaslit me, and that re-traumatized me. I wasn't heard again. Yeah. And it wasn't till another beautiful couple of women, a company called Safe Mediation. Denise is from New York, from America, and Anaïsa is she lives in Portugal now, but they, two beautiful souls, have held space, and finally we've done a proper mediation, and Andrew took full accountability, and I was heard. I have reclaimed my voice, but that process taught me a hell of a lot about the effects that rape has on perpetrators as well. And this is something that is really important that I talk about in colleges and schools, the mental and emotional impact that a non-consensual experience has on the victim and the perpetrator, because the perpetrator doesn't get away with it. We're heart-centered beings, and we have consciences, and there are a lot of things that block them as well. So nobody wins. Nobody wins.
No.
The consent is the key, and it's really important. and teaching consent conversations, teaching about consent interlinked with all these different trauma responses is so vital to our young people. You know, a lot of people, I say to the young people, who here would go to the hairdressers and say, do whatever you want to me? Not really. Go up. Say exactly. So why would you get into a sexual experience without going through a consent menu, going through a checklist? Right, I'm comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable with that. But you know, Anna, there's so much negative, toxic, violent sexuality being fed at our young people through social media, through pornography, and these are the things that need to be really, really addressed, that so much isn't okay. So that's another part of my mission as well.
Absolutely, yes. I heard you talk about pornography as well, and obviously rape and consent sexual relationship, because I can imagine that it happens not only in the rape scenario, but also people who are dating and who are in relationship, and there is a lot of violation of personal space, because like you rightly said, Larissa, we are heart-centered beings. We have feelings, we have emotions, and we should be very clear on boundaries, because if not us, then who? It's so this is our sacred space, and it's intimate, and if we can't protect it, then who's going to protect it for us? And this is why your voices are so needed. Like a voice like yours is so needed out there for people to check in with themselves, check in with who they are. You've mentioned several times, Larissa, that your voice was silenced. It wasn't heard. You were not seen. You were ignored. Can you pinpoint a moment or perhaps a shift that happened in your life that allowed you to reclaim your voice and own it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I recall one, and it was beautiful. It's a beautiful story. So when I was about 17 to 19, I went out with a big drug dealer who was very coercive and controlling, and domestic violence. It was a very difficult relationship, and I ended that relationship. And when I ended it, he went absolutely crazy. He took everything he ever bought me back. He turned everybody in the town against me. I had to get a court injunction out on him because it was very scary. He was stalking me. I couldn't go to a normal pub or a bar, or he'd turn up and he'd pour a drink over my head, or it was a very scary and frightening time for me. And I was on Facebook, it was a few years ago, and the guy that I know from Solihull, from my local town, put a picture up of him and this drug dealer and another two guys outside. There's a restaurant in London that used to be really popular. Was it Planet Hollywood or something like that? It was a place that everybody went to. Mm-hmm. And it had all the film stars stuff. And he put a post about this, and he said something about Brand was holding a black dildo in this picture. And he said it had been bought for Eamon's ex-girlfriend as a joke.
Wow.
But what those boys did with that wasn't actually, to me, my only girlfriend that stood by me, because everybody else was too scared and they went on his side. Mm. She had been dating a black guy. So they humiliated her by using this black dildo and sending it to her house and shaming her in front of her parents, and it was horrific. So I saw this post on Facebook and I and typed out all this stuff. And I claimed my power back on the situation. I got them to understand what I'd done, what he'd done to me, and that basically all I tried to do was end a toxic relationship and the abuse that I got and all of this stuff. And I said, I told them what was done to that dildo to destroy my friend and trying to crush that relationship, and every kind of thing of safety that I had was trying to be destroyed. He even had he paid some guy to pour paint stripper all over my car when I was at college, because my car was my only form of freedom, because I used to drive down to London at the weekend to get away from all the trauma and have a normality in my life. But so once I'd claimed, I'd sent this message and it had gone on the Facebook post. A couple of days later, I was singing. Like, I mean, there's something going on with my throat right now and today. And, this is a bit of a weakness in me because of all the years of stuff. And it's probably like this now because it's processing and clearing something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was able to sing like I'd never sung before. I'd sing along to songs in the car and I was just like, wow, I've got such an amazing, beautiful voice. And it was just like, wow. And, it was like my voice is coming back. And there have been other little stories like that, but that one was the most significant, where I really was like, wow, that's my voice and I've got a part of it back. And I was so grateful for claiming that part back. But it has been a journey of little parts coming back.
Yes.
So I always describe it as a jigsaw puzzle, and I'm going around finding the pieces and putting myself back together. And that demonstrates, that's the journey of the soul. The soul, ancient Egyptian mysteries is something that I'm very passionate about and I love.
Yeah.
And the goddess Isis, she rules the Ba body, which is the soul body. And her story, her mythical story, is about finding the broken parts of her husband Osiris that was cut up by evil Set and distributed and hidden over Egypt. And she had to go and find those broken parts and put them back together. And it is about, the soul is about searching, healing, finding, and bringing yourself into wholeness, finding the broken parts to bring it back together. So,
and that's the story of your life, Larissa. You have been putting together broken pieces, and look at the masterpiece that you are in the process of creating. Because when I look at you, I see this beautiful, kind, loving woman who is not only on a mission, but has a big heart to make a difference. He's not just running a business because that your pain, your past trauma has been channeled and translated into a business force.
yeah.
And you're so well put together, but I presume it took a lot of, like you said, a lot of personal growth, personal development, healing tools to put yourself back together. You look and you behave so well together. So this is amazing.
I have my moments and I can get triggered, so.
Oh, we all do. We don't need to be raped. We don't need to have all this horrendous experience that you have had. But yes, my goodness, I just like when you're speaking, I don't want you to stop, because it's just so profound, so human, so real, and you have owned it. So you are fully behind your voice now.
Okay.
Can you think of a moment where you realize that you can channel this into your business? You can start creating a meaning out of what happened to you.
So my marriage was another toxic relationship. He I think he's got a PhD in gaslighting, you know, and it took me when because we lived in Egypt. My ex-husband was Egyptian, and I built a house in Egypt, beautiful 4-story house, overlooked the Nile in Luxor. We lived in the ground floor, and the other floors were for holiday rentals. So it'd been a bit of my dream to have a yoga retreat out in Egypt and do trips, you know, and stuff like that. And our son was coming up to about 2, and then I suddenly found out that my husband had been cheating on me since 2 weeks after we got married. So I had to try and get things put in my name, which didn't happen, and then I had to try and get me and my son out of that country, because I knew that Amir, being half Egyptian, in a patriarchal culture, he may have taken Amir from me. So I fled in the middle of the night with my son. I was shaking, and I made it to the airport, and I got the hell out of Egypt. And as soon as I got on that, I flew from Luxor to Cairo, and then Cairo to England. And when I landed in the UK, it was just like a relief, you know. But at that point, I had to do a lot of healing, and that was my kind of final kind of dark night of the soul. I lost my house in Egypt, I lost my house here, I lost my marriage and my work all at the same time. I was breastfeeding a 2-year-old, and I just I didn't know what to do. I had to survive. But I focused about 5 years on giving Amir, my son, the best possible love I could give, and make him, sorry, my throat.
Your voice is processing.
So I focused everything on him to give him, you know, a happy and healthy life, away from having to see me black and blue or being called, you know, bitch and whore and horrible names. And then suddenly I just had this inner calling, this inner feeling that I needed to get my voice out there. And I phoned a friend of mine who's a public speaking coach. And I remember sitting in Sainsbury's car park, and I remember having the phone call and saying, David, I need to get, it's David Heiner, if anybody knows. David, I need to get my voice out there. And he said, what do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? And I said, well, what I really want to do is go into schools and teach sex education, but I'm not a qualified teacher, and I don't know what to do. And he said, right, I've been speaking in schools for 23 years. I don't have a teaching qualification. I can help show you what to do. And him and Claire Young, who owns School Speakers, they were doing a speaking mastermind. So he said, come and do the speaking mastermind and get, you know, it'll help you start working. And I was like, but I can't afford it. I've got nothing. I lost everything, Anna. You know what I mean? I lost about 150 grand in Egypt. I was living in a small maisonette with my son on universal credit, you know, shopping at charity shops. It was a tough time.
It was, I can imagine.
You can pay in little installments. It's okay. So, and all through that period, I went through a lot of counselling with Women's Aid and different healing therapies that I already knew as well. So then I did the mastermind, and I met somebody on the mastermind, and he said, oh, there's a college I know that want a speaker on relationships. Maybe you could do it. I said, I can't do that. I'm not ready. And he went, you will never be ready. And that was Darren Harris, you know, Darren. And I phoned them and I said, boo, Darren Harris has given me your number, and he said that you would want a speaker to cover some topics around relationships. What would you like a speaker to speak about? And they just said, we want to talk about lad culture, consent, da 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 da. And I went, oh, yes, I can cover all of that, da 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 da. And I got the gig and I went and did that. And 100 16-year-olds from, not the best area in Birmingham, all were engaged, really listening. And I've been called back every year since to that college. Do you know what I mean? So that that's how it started happening, really.
Yeah, you found your path, you found the place where you truly belong, and where finally that abuse, that horrendous experience had some meaning and some reason behind it. It's amazing, like, Larissa. I'm gonna ask you this question, and I'm quite curious what you would answer.
Okay.
If you had a chance to go back and change something, would you change some things? And if yes, then what?
Wow, that's a big, big question. And it's brought up quite a lot of emotion. And it's a no, there's nothing I would change, because it's all been a really important, learning and growing and lessons. And it's made me the woman that I am today. It's given me the compassion, the empathy, the understanding, the lived experience, the wisdom, the embodiment of everything, so that I can best serve the next generation of young people to shift this. Because we failed them. We have failed our young people around sex education for too long, too many years. They're not given the correct information. And, in our society, one of the first questions that I ask young people when I go, I say, it's so important that I give you all your voices around your sexuality. So what ways do you feel we are disempowered around our sexuality? And I let them give me answers. I tease them with sweets. If they get a right answer, they get some Haribo or something like that. But, there are so many ways that we are disempowered around our sexuality. And one of the biggest ways, and, that's why my mission statement is let's change the way that we talk about sex, is because our voice and our communication around it is the most important thing that we need to change. And if we change that, everything will change. Because at the moment,
Absolutely.
we have either no communication around it, or it's inappropriate banter and laughing, giggling, uneasy weirdness around it. There isn't healthy, respectful, open, clear communication around it. Once that comes in, then people step into their power, because the shame around relationships
And taboos as well.
taboos, they need to go.
Yeah.
They need to go. It is the most beautiful, natural,
Exactly.
God-given pleasure.
It is a divine act when you think about it.
It
But
is.
there is so much of that rubbish that you spoke into that is impeding the way to experiencing this act as it's intended to be. Larissa, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you for your heart, for being who you are. One last question and I'll let you go, because I feel like we could go on for hours. But if you were to define your genius, what were you brought here on this earth to do? What would you say?
Give people their voices around their sexuality, and to alleviate that shame and stuff that we've just talked about, because it is the most beautiful, natural, God-given pleasure that created every single one of us.
Exactly.
And it needs to be honoured and respected that way. And we need our voices and our power to reclaim our voices and our power back around it. So that's my genius.
Absolutely. It's so aligned with you, with your story, with who you are. So thank you for sharing this with us and opening your heart and your soul. I wish there were more Larissas in this world than Bonnie Blues. We're not going to go
Right.
there.
No, because ultimately, when we do have our voices around it, then we are seen, we are heard, we are
Absolutely.
valued, and our truth is blooms and blossoms at both
It does.
parties. You know,
Absolutely.
it
Absolutely.
heals, it grows, it expands. But the other non-consensual stuff and toxic sexuality and the kind of performative stuff we see, that shrinks people down. Both
Yeah.
people are not fully who they are.
Amen. I couldn't have said it better because it's obviously your field and your mission and your genius. So thank you so much, Larissa, for coming along today and sharing your story and being so incredibly amazing and vulnerable
Well,
along the way.
thank you, Anna, for having me. Thank you.